What's up, everybody? Couch Mills here, coming at you with a brand new Valorant video. And in this video, we're going to be breaking down the Episode 3 agent win rates to talk about who's dominating right now and who's not doing so hot. So if you want to know exactly what agents are popping off so far, we got to break it all down. And go to the GameLeap website in the links down below for high-quality, in-depth advanced guides, volumes, tips, and tricks that you haven't found anywhere. And we got tons of advanced content for those of you who've been wanting a little bit more. But without further ado, let's jump into the video. Now, first off, we got to talk about how these agent win rates are going to be from Platinum Plus, which actually incorporates a lot of the higher ranks because most people did not get placed where they were before. Everyone got smushed down. So Platinum and above are probably going to be your diamonds and above typically. Now, that being said, we're going to start from the bottom win rate and work our way up and talk about how things might be different in a couple of weeks or what things that we can note, which is actually indicative of the next meta. So starting off with the lowest win rate on this list, we have KO at a 46.78% win rate. Now, here's a few things you need to consider before we decide whether or not that's good or bad. The fact that KO just came out, a lot of people are playing him for the first time, no one really knows a lot of the lineups, and his playstyle as a whole hasn't been defined by the highest level. All of these factors combined mean that KO is most likely going to be vastly different as far as win rate is concerned in the future, so it's kind of like having non-conclusive data. That being said, in your games right now, I wouldn't be surprised if you start to feel like KOs are just throwing your games, but it's gonna probably be different in a little while, so yeah, you're just gonna have to deal with it until then and everyone figures out the character. Then next up, we got to talk about Breach at a 47.14% win rate. Now, Breach, this is actually a little bit higher than it used to be. And remember, Breach is still a character that is going to work far better in a coordinated environment. That means that the lower in rank you go down, and also just ranked in general is not going to be that favoritive towards Breach. And because this is including not only like Radiants and Immortals, but technically Diamonds and maybe even High Plats, this number might be a little bit skewed. However, Breach is most likely not going to be the strongest character in ranked just because of how much stronger he gets in a coordinated play. And if he does become like the best agent in ranked, then he's just going to be completely overpowered in pro play, and they'll probably have to nerf him to bring him back in line. As long as they keep Breach like this is probably how it's gonna stay for most of the game. Doesn't mean you can't main him though, but playing him in solo queue is something I probably wouldn't suggest in general. And if you want to play Breach, you want to really put in the hours to master his tempo, how to use your abilities with your gunplay. He's not the easiest character to master by any means. Now, the next character that we got to talk about is Yoru at a 47.79% win rate. That's actually pretty bad, honestly. I mean, it's not the worst, but with Yoru being a duelist, having such a low win rate is really not great, considering he should not be a character that only plays with his team. Ranked should be his playground, and it's just not. We talked about multiple times how he's getting a rework in the future, so expect that to change for Yoru. But until then, I can't really suggest Yoru right now. But if you want to put in the reps now to get good at him for the future, I don't blame you, but realize that his kit could be vastly different, so you might be practicing a character that is not even going to feel like the same character in the future. So all in all, probably don't play him unless you just really like his style or something. Now, the next character that we have to talk about in a low win rate category is surprising Phoenix at a 47.89%. Now, that is honestly really surprising to me, considering Phoenix is one of those characters that can really do it all in ranked. He has a lot of different abilities. He really helps you fill a hole in almost any composition, and I think he's the best all-around duelist, period. That being said, I understand that some of the other duelists have more carry solo potential, especially Jett and Reyna, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, and he does have, honestly, the weakest flashes in the game, so I can understand why he's a little bit lower, but I wouldn't be surprised if this goes up a little bit, and Phoenix is a fine character to main in games, even if his win rate doesn't reflect that, in my personal opinion. But let me know if you agree with me in the comments down below. Now, the next character that we got to talk about has a 48.58% win rate, and that's Cypher. Now, this is surprising to me because I expected Cypher to have a much higher win rate. I really think Cypher has two problems right now. First off, Jett is really not being the dominant character right now because of her nerfs, so one of his biggest buffs comes in the form of nerfing against Jett. And because Jett is not seeing a massive amount of play, Cypher doesn't get to feel those buffs all that much. And second off, Cypher's abilities are kind of expensive. If they made his abilities a little bit cheaper, I think it would be far easier to run Cypher consistently, make sure that you could buy nice weapons or decent weapons with your abilities. So if they were going to buff Cypher in some way, which I think they should definitely look into cheapening his abilities here or there. Now, the next character we got to talk about is Skye at a 48.64% win rate. Now, Skye is an amazing character, incredibly strong, especially for the high levels, and the fact that she has this high of a win rate, even though she is a much better character in coordinated play, speaks volumes to her power level. I think that Skye is a perfectly capable character to carry you in a lot of different games. Even if her win rate is only about 50%, Skye is one of those characters that just becomes way better when you're like duoing and even trioing, and Skye is a character that a lot of people are going to get better at rapidly, because right now people are trying to learn Skye because she got a big buff, but people aren't that good at her, and she's by no means an easy character to master, so I fully expect this win rate to go up with time. Now, the next character that we got to talk about is actually Omen at a 48.89% win rate. Now, this is really shocking to me because there's two controllers that have a higher win rate than him right now. Now, unfortunately, Omen is just a lot worse as a controller with all of these nerfs to his smoke ability. And on top of that, with a lot of his other abilities being more expensive besides his paranoia, Omen really wants to lead on the power level of executes, like an execute with Jett, for example, but with Jett not having that high of a pick rate or a win rate, which we're going to talk about in a second, and with that combination not being used that much in ranked play, I could see Omen really struggling. He doesn't have as much solo carry impact. It's a lot harder for him to lurk. It's a lot harder for him to be a controller. While I still think he's perfectly viable, especially if you really know the ins and outs of the character, on a power level point of view, he's not doing so hot with all these nerfs that hit him all at once. Now, the next character that we got to talk about is Jett at a 49.71% win rate. Now, this is also pretty shocking. Jett, even though she is known to be one of those characters that has the highest impact in ranked, has a little bit under a 50% win rate. Now, you got to remember that this is Plat Plus, so a good percentage of the time there's going to be Jetts that are feeding, okay? That just happens. People love to pick Jett, even if they aren't amazing at the character, and I think that could skew this win rate. But really, Jett is feeling all those nerfs. I mean, she got nerfed across the board, plus she got nerfed in her ultimate, and unless she could make up that difference with opping, then really the patch was just an overall negative for her. So it's really going to depend on the op skill of the user, and it's going to depend on just what compositions are being played, because ops work better or worse depending on how fast or slow a composition is. But overall, I do expect Jett's win rate to go up over time, even if it is pretty low right now. And remember, it's a little bit skewed because it's just ranked and people just slocking Jett randomly. Next up, we got to talk about Silva. 49.84% pick rate, almost 50% pick rate. I think that Silva has been rocking here for pretty long. I mean, he's always been a character that is very difficult to master, very difficult to play at a high level, and the difference between a good and a bad Silva is like night and day. On top of that, because he did receive quite a few nerfs, I understand that he got hit a slight bit in the win rate capacity compared to his past self, but I do still think that with skill, learning lineups, and just being a proficient Silva, you could easily make up those nerfs with your own skill level and make Silva a top tier character. Now, the next character we gotta talk about is definitely a shock to me, Brimstone at a 50.93% win rate. Now, Brimstone is an interesting one because he's a character that got some buffs a while back. We didn't feel those at all. He still didn't get an uptick in pick rate or win rate, and then now with Omen really getting hit, with Astra getting hit, now all of a sudden he comes out of the woodwork and he's seeing a decent amount of play. I think it's just for his reliability and smokes, and now he's become a more competitive option up against the nerfed Omen. However, I still don't think he's all that strong. I just think he's kind of just a character that you can play in the controller category, and I think that besides Viper, Astra, Brimstone, and Omen are closer than they have ever been in power level, so you most likely could pick any of these three and be just fine, especially if you're a master at any of them. Now, the next character that we gotta talk about is Sage at a 50.94% win rate, which is actually shocking considering how low it is, because Sage used to have the highest win rate. In fact, she's had it for a very long time, a very high win rate, even in the highest ranks, but having only a 50.94% pick rate means she's fallen like 3 or 4 points. Now, she did get nerfed across the board, and there are more competitive options, so I understand why this has happened. It still just shocks me a little bit to see how far she's dropped. Still a very competitively viable character in ranked though, of course. Next up, we gotta talk about Astra, which another surprising development. Astra at a 51% win rate. Now, of course, we're talking about Plat Plus, which is gonna be like Diamond Plus typically. And Astra has always been a much better character at the higher ranks than the lower ranks, where Astra really falls off with skill level, and she's just way better as people get more coordinated and teammates play off of Astra. And even though Astra has received all these damn nerfs, because she did receive a lot of them, she can't activate a lot of her abilities right off the bat, she can't combo right off the bat, she has a really long cooldown before she can use her abilities. One suck at a choke point is all it takes to completely split up a rush. She's still very efficient at trading her abilities for enemy abilities or enemy plays, and because of those reasons, Astra is still really great as long as you know how to play with her and play around her abilities. Before, she was probably way too strong. It just took a lot of people some catching up, especially after the LAN event where everyone was playing Astra. If they didn't touch her, I wouldn't be surprised if she was gonna just stay the best character in the game or become one quickly. But here, they're putting her in a pretty balanced place. And like I said, I think between Astra, Brimstone, and Omen, you have a lot of options depending on your personal playstyle, but I do think that if you put the most time and effort into Astra, you're gonna get the biggest return, the least amount of return being Brimstone, and a middle of the pack being Omen. Now, moving on to the next character that we got to talk about, it's actually Reyna at a 51.01% win rate. Now, Reyna is actually becoming better and better at just having those really defining moments in the game where you can just carry the entire game by yourself. Reyna has pretty much been that way since the beginning of Ranked, but this is the first time she's had such a high win rate, and it really just comes down to the fact that Reyna is like a no BS gunplay character. I think she's artificially pushed up, one, because of the fact that no one really knows what team composition to play. That's the first thing. But the second thing is when gunplay is increased, when gunplay is buffed and abilities are nerfed, Reyna really benefits from that. Reyna just really thrives on more gunplay, more guns being better, and that really just helps Reyna overall. She's a character that really thrives in this direction that the new game is taking, and I think that a lot of you Reyna players have really been feeling that in your games. Now, next up, we gotta talk about Raze, who did actually receive a pretty big nerf in the cost of her boombot, but she does have a 51.12% win rate. Now, Raze just fights on a very unique axis. I've said this many times before, and as people get better with her, she scales exponentially. She's an insane character that can deal with a lot of what is being played right now, a lot of Viper. She's really good at taking site control. She's really, really good on maps like Bind, on Split. She basically offers a certain type of value that is irreplaceable, and I would be very interested in another character that could fight for a similar space. But for now, Raze is unique, she's powerful, and pretty much every single team will benefit from having a good Raze on it. Then we're going to character number 2. We got to talk about Viper at a 51.22% win rate. Now, this one is not surprising at all. This one is pretty expected. Viper is freaking nuts. She didn't receive hardly any changes, just very little changes to her snake bite, and she was already dominant before when pretty much all the other controllers got nerfed, pretty much most characters got nerfed, and Viper was strong before, didn't get nerfed, she's going to be even stronger now, and that's really reflecting in a lot of her play. There are really two big things that you gotta learn if you want to master Viper. The first thing is how to play in and around your smoke to basically out-time enemies or catch them off guard. And the second thing that you gotta learn is Viper lineups and rollouts, specifically toxic screen lineups and snakebite rollouts. If you can do those things, you could be very impactful by stalling the game out, making the game very close on margin and timing, and then use these rollouts to finish off a game. Specifically knowing snakebite rollouts when you've already stalled for so much time because your smokes and your wall really just stalls out enemies and really makes them slow the game down. You can use the time pressure that you're creating to punish them with these rollouts, and I think that it is very powerful, and it's being used in pro play and ranked play alike. So if you want to find a character that is going to be able to dominate if you put the practice into her, Viper is definitely the character for you. Now, the last character that we got to talk about is the highest win rate character right now at a 51.83% win rate, and it's Killjoy. And she basically said, news of my demise has been greatly exaggerated, basically. I mean, she actually has just a nuts win rate, and Killjoy is a character that did get pretty hard nerfs, if I'm being honest, specifically to the attacking power of the agent, but I guess this goes to show how much her defensive capabilities are so damn powerful, it doesn't even matter if her offensive capabilities are neutered. She could still check for flanks, stall on defense, and she, of course, is just a character that is going to reward you for rollout understanding and things like that. I think really Cypher is going to need a tiny bit of buffs to really compete with Killjoy in her current role because she's just so damn powerful right now in her current state. But remember, pro teams like Sentinel just opt to not play the Killjoy at all, and they've basically been playing Cypher even through his downturn and been winning with him. So the differences between these agents are not as big as they actually seem. In fact, I think right now, we are in a more balanced agent scenario than we have been in a long time, with the exception of KO because we don't know how he's going to turn out. But for most of the characters, it's pretty balanced, unlike it's been before where there's always been like one clear-cut best agent per role. So definitely let me know what you think about these win rates and how are these win rates different in your rank. I really want to know your opinion about all that in the comments down below, and go to the GameLeap website and the links down below for in-depth events, guides, VOD reviews, tips and tricks. We got so much damn content on the GameLeap website that you just have to go check it out right now down below. But thank you so much for coming by. I really hope you enjoyed the video. I love your faces, and I'll see you next time.